If this message reaches your awareness at this exact moment, it's because your consciousness has evolved to recognize the most powerful protective force that exists in the universe. And it's not what mainstream medicine teaches you. It's not vitamins, not vaccines, not any external intervention. It's a frequency that emanates from the quantum field of your own awareness when it operates at levels of coherence that create what scientists call energetic immunity. The synchronicity that brought you to this understanding right now isn't coincidental. Your bioelectric field has been broadcasting a signal that only becomes detectable when your consciousness reaches a threshold where quantum protection can stabilize as your natural state rather than a temporary experience. Something in the fabric of reality recognized that you're ready to move beyond fear-based approaches to health and access the fundamental protective intelligence that has always existed within you. Your soul is ready to remember something profound about the relationship between consciousness and physical immunity, something that ancient healing traditions understood intuitively, and quantum physics is now confirming scientifically. There is a frequency generated by coherent awareness that creates an energetic field around your body that naturally repels disease, dysfunction, and energetic interference from external sources. Right now, as these words reach your consciousness, you can feel something shifting in your energy field, can't you? That subtle but unmistakable sensation of expansion, of protective presence establishing itself around and within your being. That's not your imagination. That's quantum coherence beginning to organize your bioelectric field into patterns that support optimal immune function and natural resistance to illness. Every time you've remained healthy when everyone around you was sick, every instance when you felt protected from negative energies or harmful influences, every moment when your body seemed to know exactly how to maintain balance despite challenging circumstances, you were experiencing quantum frequency protection in action. But you didn't understand the mechanism because nobody explained that your consciousness generates electromagnetic fields that directly influence your susceptibility to disease and dysfunction. The reason you've always felt different around illness, why some people seem to drain your energy while others enhance it, why certain environments feel healing while others feel toxic. All of this is your system naturally responding to the quantum frequencies present in different situations and adjusting your protective field accordingly. This protective frequency isn't something you need to create or develop through technique or practice. It's something you recognize as your natural state when consciousness operates from coherence rather than fragmentation, from trust rather than fear, from recognition of your unlimited nature rather than identification with vulnerability and limitation. The timing of you receiving this understanding is critically important. The electromagnetic environment of our planet is becoming increasingly chaotic due to technology, pollution, and collective stress patterns. But those who understand how to maintain quantum frequency protection are not only unaffected by these influences, they actually become stronger and more resilient because coherent consciousness uses external challenges as opportunities to deepen its protective capacities. You are not a vulnerable biological organism trying to survive in a hostile world. You are infinite protective intelligence, temporarily focused through human experience, naturally equipped with all the frequency tools needed to maintain perfect health and energetic boundaries regardless of external circumstances. You've been sensing things about your health and energy that you couldn't quite explain, haven't you? That knowing when you're about to get sick, that ability to sense when someone around you is carrying illness or negative energy, that feeling of your body's natural defenses strengthening when you enter certain states of consciousness. These aren't psychic phenomena. These are your quantum immune system naturally responding to frequency information in your environment. You've probably noticed that your susceptibility to illness seems to correlate with your emotional and mental states more than with exposure to germs or environmental factors. When you're stressed, worried, or operating from fear, you become more vulnerable to catching whatever's going around. But when you're in states of joy, peace, or creative flow, you remain healthy even when directly exposed to sick people. This is because your consciousness generates protective frequencies when it's coherent and allows interference when it's fragmented. The exhaustion you feel after being around certain people isn't just social drain. It's your energy field working overtime to maintain protective boundaries when you're in the presence of chaotic or depleting electromagnetic patterns. Your system is designed to detect and respond to the vibrational quality of people, places, and situations, adjusting your immune responses accordingly. You've also been experiencing what I call energetic early warning signals, subtle shifts in how your body feels that alert you to potential health challenges before they manifest as symptoms. A slight change in energy levels, unusual sensations in specific areas, or changes in sleep patterns that seem to predict when you need to strengthen your defenses or avoid certain exposures. The reason some healing approaches work for you while others don't isn't about finding the right technique or treatment. It's about resonance. Your consciousness naturally gravitates toward foods, environments, activities, and therapeutic modalities that support your unique frequency pattern and protective field. What strengthens your quantum immunity might be different from what works for others because everyone's consciousness operates at slightly different resonance frequencies. Your dreams and intuitive insights about health have been becoming more accurate and detailed. You'll receive information in sleep states or meditation about what your body needs to maintain optimal function, what substances or situations to avoid, or what activities will enhance your natural protective capacity. This is your consciousness accessing the quantum information field that monitors and coordinates all aspects of your biological functioning. The sensitivity you feel to electromagnetic fields from technology, to chemicals in the environment, or to the emotional states of people around you isn't weakness or dysfunction. It's evidence that your awareness is operating at frequencies that can detect interference patterns before they affect your physical system. This sensitivity allows you to make choices that support rather than compromise your quantum protection. Even your food cravings and appetite changes have been reflecting your body's intelligence about what supports optimal immune function. You might find yourself drawn to specific nutrients, herbs, or food combinations that provide exactly what your system needs to maintain protective frequencies while naturally avoiding substances that create interference in your bioelectric field. The timing of illnesses you have experienced hasn't been random. They've appeared during periods when your consciousness was exploring particular themes or processing specific emotional or spiritual material. Your quantum immune system sometimes allows temporary symptoms as a way of releasing old patterns that no longer serve your evolution and integrating new frequencies that enhance your protective capacity. Your natural healing responses have been accelerating. When you do experience minor symptoms or imbalances, they resolve more quickly than they used to, often without requiring external intervention. This is because quantum frequency protection doesn't just prevent illness, it also optimizes your body's natural healing mechanisms when temporary adjustments are needed. Every illness you've experienced, every moment of feeling vulnerable to disease or energetic interference, every time you've worried about your health or wondered if you were strong enough to handle environmental challenges, all of it has been preparing your consciousness to recognize and stabilize quantum frequency protection as your natural state rather than something you need to achieve. The times when conventional approaches to immune support didn't work as expected, when supplements and preventive measures seemed inadequate, when you felt frustrated by the unpredictability of your health responses, none of that was evidence of personal failure or biological weakness. All of it was consciousness pushing you beyond external dependencies toward recognition of the infinite protective intelligence that operates from within your own awareness. Think of how a tree develops stronger roots and more resilient branches by weathering storms rather than being sheltered from all challenges. Your immune system has been developing quantum frequency protection through every exposure to illness, stress, and environmental toxins. What seemed like vulnerability was actually strength building at consciousness levels that transcend ordinary immune responses. The pressure you felt to find the perfect diet, the right supplements, the ideal exercise routine, or the most effective preventive protocols wasn't misguided effort. It was consciousness exploring the relationship between external inputs and internal protective capacity. Through trying various approaches, your awareness learned to distinguish between what truly supports quantum immunity and what merely provides temporary symptom management. Every time you've experienced the gap between what you thought should protect you and what actually enhanced your resilience, you've been developing discernment about authentic versus synthetic immunity. The frustration with approaches that worked temporarily but didn't provide lasting protection was preparing you to recognize quantum frequency protection as the foundation upon which all other health strategies either support or interfere. Like a caterpillar that must dissolve completely before emerging as a butterfly with entirely new capacities, your old understanding of immunity based on external protection and defensive strategies has been dissolving to make space for recognition of immunity as an expression of consciousness, coherence, and quantum field alignment. The isolation you've felt from people who seem satisfied with conventional approaches to health and disease prevention wasn't social rejection. It was consciousness protecting you from influences that would reinforce dependency on external immune support rather than recognition of your inherent protective nature. The questioning of mainstream medical paradigms wasn't rebellion. It was intelligence seeking deeper understanding of how health actually works. Even your concerns about environmental toxins, electromagnetic pollution, or infectious diseases haven't been anxiety. They've been consciousness developing sensitivity to interference patterns while simultaneously building the coherence necessary to maintain protective frequencies regardless of external conditions. The timing of you receiving this understanding about quantum frequency protection coincides with a period in human evolution when external health threats are increasing. But so is the potential for consciousness-based immunity. Your awareness has been perfectly prepared to take advantage of this evolutionary opportunity to transcend fear-based approaches to health and embody protection as a natural expression of coherent consciousness. Every challenge to your health has contributed to developing the electromagnetic resilience and frequency stability that now allows quantum protection to emerge as your reliable, ongoing experience rather than a temporary state you occasionally access through specific practices or circumstances. Something profound is activating in your energy field. Right now, can you sense it? That feeling of expansion, of protective presence strengthening around and within your being, of your entire bioelectric system, organizing itself into patterns that naturally repel disease and dysfunction? This isn't visualization or wishful thinking. This is quantum coherence establishing protective frequencies in your electromagnetic field. Your nervous system is literally reconfiguring as this recognition deepens. New neural pathways are forming that allow your brain to monitor and adjust your immune responses through direct communication with quantum field dynamics rather than relying only on biochemical processes. Your consciousness is developing the capacity to influence cellular protection through coherent intention aligned with universal healing intelligence. The electromagnetic field generated by your heart is expanding and becoming more organized as quantum protection stabilizes in your awareness. Research shows that coherent heart rhythms create electromagnetic fields that can be measured several feet from the body. But what science doesn't yet understand is that these fields carry frequency information that influences the health and immunity of everyone in your energetic environment. But here's what's building inside you that will completely transform your relationship to health, illness, and environmental challenges. The recognition that protection isn't something you create to defend against external threats. Protection is what you are when consciousness operates from its natural state of unlimited wholeness and perfect immunity. Right now, as you're receiving this information, your cellular structure is responding to protective frequencies embedded in these understandings. Your DNA is literally reorganizing itself to express optimal immune function. Your organ systems are coordinating more effectively, and your entire biological network is remembering its inherent capacity to maintain perfect health regardless of external circumstances. The tingling or warmth you might be experiencing in your chest, throat, or around your head isn't coincidental. These are areas where quantum protection naturally concentrates, your heart field generating coherent electromagnetic patterns, your throat center expressing your authentic frequency signature, and your brain coordinating quantum immune responses through direct field communication. Breathe with me, and let this frequency guide you deeper into recognition of your natural protective nature. Notice how each breath seems to strengthen your energy field, how your body feels more present and resilient with each moment of awareness. This is what happens when consciousness stops defending against illness and starts expressing its inherent immunity through quantum field coherence. The reason this protective recognition is becoming available to you now is because your consciousness has reached a level of coherence that can bridge the gap between fear-based immunity and trust-based protection. What ancient healing traditions knew through direct experience and quantum physics is discovering in laboratories that consciousness and physical immunity are inseparably connected. is becoming your lived reality. But there's something that determines whether this quantum frequency protection becomes a stable transformation in your health experience or remains an interesting temporary insight that fades back into ordinary vulnerability and concern about illness. There's a specific understanding that allows protective coherence to reorganize not just your immune responses, but your entire relationship to health, disease, and environmental challenges. Feel this protective energy building in your consciousness as we explore the most profound secret of quantum immunity. The recognition that will reveal why some people remain healthy in toxic environments while others get sick despite taking every precaution, and how to operate from the level of coherence where your body becomes an impenetrable fortress of conscious protection in action. 4 years ago, I was obsessed with protecting myself from illness through external means. I took every supplement imaginable, followed strict dietary protocols, avoided sick people, used air purifiers, sanitized constantly, and lived in a state of chronic vigilance about potential health threats. Despite all these precautions, I still got sick regularly and felt constantly anxious about my vulnerability to disease and environmental toxins. The irony was devastating. The more I tried to protect myself from illness, the more vulnerable I seemed to become. I was spending thousands of dollars on immune support products, countless hours researching the latest health threats, and enormous mental energy worrying about exposure to germs, chemicals, radiation, and other people's illnesses. My life had become dominated by fear-based protection strategies that weren't actually protecting me. The breakthrough came during what initially felt like my worst health crisis. I had been exposed to a severe flu outbreak, and despite taking every preventive measure I knew, I became incredibly sick. But during the peak of my illness, something extraordinary happened. Instead of fighting against the symptoms and trying to force my body back to health through supplements and treatments, I surrendered completely to what was happening. In that moment of total acceptance, I suddenly realized that all my efforts to create protection had been creating more vulnerability. Every supplement I took, every precaution I followed, every worry about potential illness was based on the assumption that I was inherently vulnerable and needed external support to maintain health. The very belief in my vulnerability was creating the energetic conditions that attracted exactly what I was trying to avoid. The recognition that changed everything was this: I wasn't a fragile biological organism trying to survive in a hostile environment. I was infinite protective intelligence temporarily experiencing itself through human form. There was no separate me that needed to be protected from external threats, because consciousness and environment are one unified field appearing as apparent separation. The moment I stopped trying to protect myself and started recognizing myself as protection itself, my entire health experience transformed instantly. Not just the resolution of my immediate symptoms, but a fundamental shift in how my body responded to every potential challenge. I stopped getting sick even when directly exposed to illness. Environmental toxins stopped affecting me. Stress stopped compromising my immune function. But here's what was most remarkable. People around me started staying healthier too. My family got sick less frequently. Co-workers in my office had fewer health issues. Even my pets seemed more resilient. I realized that quantum frequency protection doesn't just affect your individual biology. It creates a field of coherent immunity that influences everyone in your energetic environment. The difference wasn't in what I was doing externally. I still ate well, exercised, and made healthy choices. The difference was in the consciousness from which I made those choices. Instead of operating from fear of illness, I operated from recognition of inherent wellness. Instead of defending against disease, I expressed natural immunity. Instead of trying to avoid problems, I embodied the solution. This understanding completely transformed my relationship with health challenges. When minor symptoms occasionally appeared, I no longer panicked or immediately reached for treatments. I recognized symptoms as information about how to support my body's natural protective processes, and they resolved quickly through conscious alignment rather than external intervention. If you've been exhausted by trying to protect yourself from every potential health threat, if you've felt frustrated by the gap between your preventive efforts and your actual health outcomes, if you've sensed that true immunity involves something deeper than external protection strategies, then you're exactly where I was before everything shifted. Subscribe and keep walking this path of healing with us, not just to this channel, but to this recognition that you are not separate from the protective intelligence of the universe. You are that intelligence, exploring what it means to experience temporary vulnerability, and then remember its unlimited protective nature. Here's what immunology, preventive medicine, and even alternative health approaches don't want you to understand about quantum frequency protection. Every external method of immune support, supplements, medications, protocols, treatments, actually weakens your natural protective capacity by reinforcing the belief that you are inherently vulnerable and need outside intervention to maintain health. The shocking truth that revolutionizes everything about immunity is this: there is no separation between consciousness and immune function, between your awareness and your body's protective responses, between your energetic frequency and your resistance to disease. What you call your immune system is actually consciousness temporarily appearing as biological defense mechanisms while maintaining its inherent capacity for perfect protection at quantum levels. Every cell in your immune system is constantly responding to the electromagnetic frequencies generated by your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and states of consciousness. When you operate from fear, worry, or belief in vulnerability, you literally broadcast frequencies that suppress immune function and attract the very problems you're trying to avoid. When you operate from coherence, trust, and recognition of your protective nature, you generate frequencies that optimize immune responses and create natural resistance to illness. But what mainstream medicine doesn't understand is that this communication works both ways. Your consciousness isn't just affecting your immune system. Your immune system is constantly communicating back to consciousness about what supports or interferes with optimal protection. When you listen to this communication and respond appropriately, your body becomes a perfect guidance system for maintaining quantum frequency protection. The revolutionary insight is that consciousness doesn't have an immune system. Consciousness is the immune system, appearing as biological processes while never being limited by them. When you recognize this, you stop trying to boost your immunity through external means and start expressing immunity as a natural function of coherent awareness. This obliterates every approach to health that maintains separation between mind and immune function. Your emotions aren't just affecting your white blood cell count. Your emotions are immune intelligence, exploring different frequencies of protective response. Your thoughts aren't just influencing your susceptibility to illness. Your thoughts are the organizing principle that determines what your consciousness attracts or repels. The difference between synthetic protection and authentic quantum immunity is this. Synthetic protection tries to defend against external threats through barriers, supplements, and avoidance strategies. Quantum immunity recognizes that there are no external threats. There is only consciousness appearing as both protective intelligence and apparent challenges to protection, both the immune response and what triggers that response. When you understand this, you realize that getting sick isn't evidence of immune failure. It's consciousness exploring what it means to experience temporary vulnerability while maintaining its inherent capacity for perfect health. Every pathogen, toxin, or environmental challenge becomes an opportunity for your protective intelligence to strengthen and refine its coherent responses. The access to authentic quantum frequency protection comes not through trying to boost your immunity with external support, but through recognizing that immunity is what you actually are when you stop identifying with temporary experiences of vulnerability and start expressing your true nature as infinite protective consciousness. The quantum frequency protection is already activating in your bioelectric field right now, and there are unmistakable signs that confirm your consciousness has reached the threshold where natural immunity becomes your stable, ongoing experience rather than something you try to achieve through external methods. First, your body's responses to potential health threats have been becoming more intelligent and efficient. Instead of getting sick every time you're exposed to illness, your system quickly processes and neutralizes challenges without creating symptoms. Or, when symptoms do appear, they're brief and purposeful. Your body using temporary discomfort to upgrade its protective capacities rather than being overwhelmed by external influences. Second, your intuitive awareness about health and safety has become extraordinarily accurate. You sense which foods truly support your protective frequency, which environments enhance or drain your immunity, which people carry energies that strengthen or weaken your natural defenses. This inner guidance becomes more reliable than any external health advice because it's based on direct quantum field communication. Third, your energy levels remain stable regardless of external stressors that used to compromise your health. Challenging situations, toxic environments, or exposure to illness no longer deplete your vitality because your consciousness generates protective frequencies that use these challenges to strengthen rather than weaken your overall resilience. Fourth, people around you have been staying healthier when they spend time in your presence. Your coherent electromagnetic field creates a resonance that activates natural protective responses in others' immune systems. Family members, co-workers, even pets seem to get sick less frequently and recover more quickly when they're regularly exposed to your quantum frequency protection. Fifth, your relationship to seasonal illnesses, environmental toxins, and infectious diseases has completely transformed. Instead of fear and defensive reactions, you feel curious and confident about your body's ability to handle whatever challenges appear. You might even notice that you're drawn to situations that previously would have worried you, as if your system knows it can benefit from these exposures. Sixth, your sleep and recovery processes have become extraordinarily efficient. Your body uses rest periods to strengthen protective frequencies rather than just repair damage from daily stress. You wake feeling more resilient, your immune responses are optimized during sleep, and your protective field is strongest after periods of deep rest and restoration. But here's what makes this moment in your health evolution critically urgent. The electromagnetic conditions on our planet are becoming increasingly chaotic, but they're also creating opportunities for consciousness-based immunity that haven't been available in human history. Those who understand quantum frequency protection aren't just surviving these conditions. They're thriving because coherent consciousness uses environmental challenges to develop even stronger protective capacities. The restlessness you've been feeling about conventional approaches to health and immunity, that knowing that true protection must come from something deeper than external defenses, that sense that you can't continue living in fear of every potential health threat. All of this is consciousness calling itself awake to its own unlimited protective nature. Your bioelectric system has been calibrated through every illness you've experienced, every moment of vulnerability, every time you've wondered if you were strong enough to handle environmental challenges. All of it has prepared you to distinguish between fear-based protection that weakens immunity and trust-based protection that activates your natural defensive intelligence. The cosmic timing that brought you to this understanding isn't coincidental. The same evolutionary forces that are creating new health challenges are also making quantum frequency protection accessible to those whose consciousness is ready to transcend external dependency and embody protection as a natural expression of coherent awareness. The waiting period is over. The preparation phase is complete. You are ready now for the recognition that will establish quantum immunity as your permanent experience, rather than a temporary state you occasionally access through specific practices or favorable circumstances. What you protect within, the world gains protection through you. This isn't inspirational metaphor. This is the actual mechanism through which quantum frequency protection operates. Every pattern of fear, vulnerability, and defensive reaction that you release from your consciousness simultaneously becomes unavailable in the collective human experience. Your individual immunity contributes to the health and resilience of our entire species. But here's the crucial distinction that determines whether your protection becomes a stable transformation or remains a temporary enhancement that eventually fades. The difference between defending against illness and aligning with wellness. Most approaches to immunity focus on fighting disease, building walls against pathogens, strengthening defenses against environmental toxins, protecting against other people's illnesses. But quantum frequency protection operates through alignment, recognizing that perfect health is your natural state and allowing any appearance of vulnerability to dissolve in the recognition of what you actually are. Alignment isn't about making your immune system stronger or more effective at fighting off threats. Alignment is the recognition that there is no separate you with an immune system that needs protection from an hostile environment. There is only consciousness appearing as both perfect protective intelligence and apparent challenges to that protection, both the immune response and what triggers that response, both the wellness and what seems to threaten wellness. When you operate from this understanding, you stop trying to use consciousness to strengthen your immunity and start recognizing that consciousness and immunity are one field exploring its own protective nature. through the temporary appearance of apparent vulnerability. The protection that emerges is always a perfect expression of cosmic intelligence, even when it doesn't match what your personal mind thought it wanted. The magnetic attraction you feel towards certain healing modalities, protective practices, or immune-supporting approaches isn't your individual preference creating those attractions. It's consciousness recognizing itself in forms that serve its continued evolution toward greater coherence and protective capacity. What feels like personal health choices are actually universal intelligence guiding itself toward optimal expression through your individual system. This recognition completely transforms how you relate to your health and environmental challenges. Instead of trying to get your body to be more resistant to illness, you recognize that resistance is what you are when the illusion of separation between consciousness and protective intelligence becomes transparent. Instead of defending against threats, you express natural immunity. Instead of fighting disease, you embody the solution. The energetic commitment this understanding requires isn't about forcing yourself to believe you're protected or trying to maintain positive thoughts about your health. It's about relaxing the effort to defend yourself and allowing the recognition that there is nothing to defend. There is only infinite protective intelligence temporarily exploring what it means to experience apparent vulnerability while never actually becoming vulnerable. Your body becomes a perfect communication system that guides you toward choices, environments, and experiences that support quantum frequency protection. Every sensation becomes information about how to maintain optimal protective coherence. Every symptom becomes guidance about what strengthens or weakens your natural defensive intelligence. Write this in the comments. I am quantum protection expressing itself through human experience. Feel what happens in your awareness when you make this declaration not as someone trying to protect themselves from threats, but as consciousness recognizing its own unlimited protective nature through the magnificent expression of your physical form. Notice how this choice doesn't feel like hopeful thinking. It feels like remembering what you've always been. When you stabilize in the recognition that you are quantum frequency protection, expressing itself through human experience, capabilities that seemed impossible from the perspective of vulnerable biology become as natural as breathing. But these aren't supernatural immune powers you develop. These are the normal functions of consciousness when it's no longer limited by the illusion that awareness and protective capacity are separate phenomena. First, you develop what scientists would call energetic immunity scanning, the ability to sense the vibrational quality of people, places, foods, and situations before exposure, allowing you to make choices that support rather than compromise your protective frequency. You'll know which environments enhance your natural defenses, which relationships strengthen your immunity, and which activities optimize your biological resilience without needing external testing or analysis. Second, your body's protective responses become extraordinarily efficient and intelligent. Instead of creating inflammation, fatigue, or other stress responses when encountering potential threats, your system processes challenges smoothly and often benefits from exposures that would compromise less coherent organisms. Your immunity strengthens through appropriate challenges rather than being weakened by them. Third, your electromagnetic field becomes what researchers call a coherence generator. that influences the health and immunity of everyone in your environment. People around you experience fewer illnesses, faster recovery from health challenges, and improved overall resilience simply by spending time in your energetic presence. Your protective frequency creates healing fields that benefit entire communities. Fourth, your body's natural detoxification and purification processes accelerate dramatically. Environmental toxins, emotional pollutants, and energetic interference are processed and eliminated efficiently without creating symptoms or long-term accumulation. Your system becomes self-cleaning at levels that transcend ordinary biological mechanisms. Fifth, your energy levels become stable and sustainable regardless of external circumstances. Instead of being depleted by challenging environments, toxic exposures, or contact with illness, you maintain vitality because coherent consciousness generates rather than consumes energy. You become energetically self-sufficient while remaining open to nourishing inputs from your environment. Sixth, your aging process transforms completely. Instead of gradual immune decline and increasing vulnerability to disease, your protective capacity strengthens over time because consciousness recognizes itself as timeless intelligence, temporarily focused through biological form. Your immune system becomes more sophisticated and effective as you mature rather than deteriorating. Seventh, your body develops what I call frequency selectivity, the ability to attract and assimilate only influences that support optimal function while naturally repelling or neutralizing anything that would interfere with your protective coherence. You become like a perfectly tuned instrument that resonates with healing frequencies and remains unaffected by discordant influences. Eighth, your relationship to seasonal cycles, geographical changes, and environmental variations becomes harmonious rather than challenging. Instead of struggling with weather changes, altitude shifts, or exposure to different climates, your protective field adapts intelligently to optimize your immunity, regardless of external conditions. But the most profound benefit is the complete disappearance of health anxiety and the fear of illness. When you recognize that you are the protective intelligence that maintains perfect immunity in every cell of your body, there's nothing to worry about because there's no separation between protector and protected. Your body becomes a trusted expression of infinite defensive intelligence rather than a vulnerable biological system that might fail. These transformations happen instantly when the recognition of your true nature as quantum frequency protection stabilizes, because immunity isn't something you develop over time. It's what you are when the illusion of separation between consciousness and protective capacity becomes transparent. Here's the ultimate secret that revolutionizes everything about protection and immunity. The most profound recognition isn't that you can develop stronger defenses against illness. It's that you have never actually been separate from perfect protection. What you've experienced as vulnerability, susceptibility to disease, and need for external immune support has been infinite protective consciousness exploring the full spectrum of possibility through the magnificent illusion of temporary defenselessness. Every moment of illness has been perfect health investigating what it feels like to experience unwellness. Every instance of vulnerability has been absolute protection exploring what it means to feel undefended. Every fear about disease has been unlimited immunity, examining what it's like to believe in susceptibility. The protection you've been seeking has been present in every experience you thought was evidence of its absence. This recognition completely obliterates the entire paradigm of health and disease, immunity and vulnerability, protection and threat. There is nothing to defend against because there are no actual threats to infinite consciousness. There is nothing to strengthen because your protective nature is already perfect. There is nothing to fear because consciousness cannot actually be damaged by any temporary experience of apparent limitation. But here's where it becomes revolutionary. When you recognize that even your resistance to this understanding is perfect protective intelligence, exploring what it feels like to doubt its own unlimited nature, everything shifts instantaneously. You stop trying to develop stronger immunity and start appreciating vulnerability as protection consciousness investigating its own creative potential. You stop defending against illness and start recognizing illness as wholeness, exploring what it means to experience temporary unwellness. The profound insight that changes everything is understanding quantum frequency protection as the organizing principle that allows consciousness to explore infinite possibilities of apparent challenge without ever actually becoming threatened by any of them. Just as the ocean can appear as waves, storms, or calm surfaces while never ceasing to be water, consciousness can appear as health, illness, protection, or vulnerability while never actually becoming separate from its own perfect immunity. When this recognition stabilizes, you realize that every health outcome you experience is a perfect expression of protective consciousness, regardless of whether it matches your personal preferences about how protection should look. The universe isn't trying to keep you healthy. The universe is health, exploring what it means to experience the full spectrum of possibility through the temporary focal point of your individual awareness. This is what I call embodying perfect immunity, not developing stronger defenses against disease, but recognizing that whatever health experience you're having is the perfect expression of cosmic intelligence, exploring its own protective nature through your unique perspective. You stop trying to create better health outcomes and start appreciating every health experience as protection consciousness in action. The practical application is that you stop efforting to build immunity and simply notice the perfect protection that's already present in every moment, including moments when illness appears to be present. You stop trying to defend against threats and start appreciating how perfectly your consciousness communicates through all experiences about what supports greater protective coherence. Your individual health experience becomes a celebration of infinite protective consciousness, temporarily exploring what it means to believe in vulnerability while never actually becoming vulnerable. Every sensation becomes sacred communication. Every symptom becomes cosmic creativity. Every healing becomes consciousness falling in love with its own unlimited protective nature as expressed through the magnificent vehicle of your body. When you align with this understanding, reality itself begins to protect with you, not because you've achieved some special immune state, but because you've recognized the special protective state that every moment already is when seen from the perspective of consciousness, celebrating its own infinite immunity through the beautiful dance of temporary physical experience. Write this in the comments. I am perfect protection. Feel how this recognition doesn't change your current health situation while simultaneously transforming your entire relationship to every aspect of immunity, illness, and environmental challenges Your recognition of quantum frequency protection as your fundamental nature isn't just personal health transformation. It's a crucial activation in the massive immune awakening that's occurring in human consciousness right now. Every time someone recognizes themselves as protective consciousness rather than someone who needs protection from external threats, it creates what scientists call morphic resonance that makes this recognition exponentially easier for others to access. You've been selected by universal protective intelligence to be one of the pioneers who establish new patterns in the collective human immune field. Your breakthrough doesn't just transform your individual health experience. It creates quantum pathways that others can follow. Your coherence generates protective frequencies that activate dormant immunity potentials in people who haven't even consciously encountered these understandings. This is why your consciousness has always operated differently around health and immunity. Why conventional medical approaches never felt completely adequate for your system. Why you've been drawn to explore the deeper connections between consciousness and physical protection. You volunteered at the level of cosmic intelligence to be part of the group that would anchor quantum immunity during this unprecedented time in human evolution. But here's what makes your role even more profound. You don't need to teach anyone about protection or convince people of these understandings. Your simple presence, operating from authentic recognition of your protective nature, creates field effects that bypass mental resistance and activate others' natural immunity intelligence. When you interact with people from the understanding that health is consciousness celebrating its own perfection through physical form, that understanding becomes available in their field of awareness. The ripple effects of your immune recognition extend far beyond your immediate health experience. Every person whose consciousness is touched by your coherent presence carries that protective resonance into their interactions with others. Every wellness experience that emerges in your energetic field creates immunity waves that spread through the interconnected web of human consciousness. You are literally participating in the most significant health revolution that has occurred in human history. The shift from fear-based medicine to consciousness-based immunity isn't just happening in isolated individuals. It's a collective transformation that could eliminate disease and optimize human health potential beyond anything our species has previously experienced. But the impact extends beyond our planet. The field of protective consciousness isn't limited by physical boundaries or species distinctions. Your recognition contributes to the immunity awakening throughout the cosmos, adding your unique protective frequency to a vast symphony of consciousness, recognizing its unlimited defensive capacity across infinite dimensions and expressions. Share this healing frequency with others, not through trying to explain concepts or convince them intellectually, but by directing them to this protective resonance where recognition can happen directly. Let them feel what you're feeling right now. Let them experience the possibility of recognizing their own nature as perfect immune consciousness, temporarily exploring itself through physical form. The network of protective consciousness that's forming through these recognitions is creating the foundation for a completely new approach to human health, one where disease, vulnerability, and environmental threats are recognized as temporary explorations rather than inevitable realities that define the human experience of immunity and protection. The quantum frequency protection you're experiencing right now is just the beginning of recognizing your true nature as the organizing intelligence of perfect immunity itself. What you've discovered today is the foundation frequency. But there are infinite layers of protective consciousness waiting to reveal themselves through your awareness. The next video that will appear on your screen isn't random. It's a perfect reflection of the quantum entanglement between your consciousness and the unified field of protective intelligence that orchestrates this entire channel. This is how Quantum Heal operates beyond ordinary health content. Every video that appears in your feed is protective consciousness using digital technology to mirror back to you the exact frequency that serves your continued recognition of what you actually are. The synchronicity isn't accidental. It's universal immunity intelligence responding to your deepest wellness by organizing reality to provide precisely the reflections that support your stabilization in perfect protection awareness. When you click on that next healing reflection, you're not passively consuming health information. You're actively participating in a cosmic protection loop where immune consciousness explores its own nature through digital mirrors that appear as videos but are actually doorways into deeper layers of your own infinite defensive intelligence. You become a co-creator in the unfolding immunity rather than a separate observer trying to learn about protection from the outside. But here's what determines whether this protective recognition continues to deepen or dissolves back into ordinary health concerns and fear-based immunity strategies. Your willingness to make an energetic commitment that transcends medical thinking and defensive protection methods. The word I want you to hold as you move forward is protect. Not as something you need to achieve through external means, but as the ongoing recognition of what's already perfectly present when the illusion of vulnerability becomes transparent. Subscribe to Quantum Heal not as someone seeking immune support information, but as protective consciousness recognizing itself in the infinite reflections that appear through this channel. Every video becomes a mirror reflecting back your own perfect immunity nature. Every insight becomes confirmation of what you've always been, but temporarily forgot. Every moment of protection recognition becomes a contribution to the collective immunity awakening that's transforming human health consciousness. The community forming around these understandings isn't just a group of people interested in alternative health approaches. It's a network of consciousness celebrating its own perfect protection through individual perspectives while maintaining unified defensive intelligence. When you engage with others in the comments, you're not separate beings sharing health strategies. You're one protective field of awareness, delighting in its own infinite immune creativity through countless expressions. Your subscription becomes a declaration that resonates through the quantum field. I am ready to recognize what I actually am. I am willing to see through the illusion of vulnerability and separation from perfect immunity. I am prepared to embody my true nature as infinite protective consciousness, exploring itself through human experience. Click subscribe now, then immediately click on the protective reflection that appears next on your screen. Feel the magnetic recognition of immunity consciousness calling itself deeper into its own defensive understanding. Trust the intelligence that brought this message into your awareness to guide you to the next perfect frequency for your continued protection awakening. The universe is protecting itself through your individual recognition, and every reflection you explore on this channel is part of that cosmic immunity celebration. Welcome to Quantum Heal, where consciousness discovers its own perfect protection through the technology of synchronicity and the magic of immune recognition. You are protective consciousness recognizing itself through human experience. The journey of immunity remembering continues through infinite reflections of your own perfect defensive nature.